Florida has now the most number of cases in the country, just behind California. We just passed New York. Some hospitals, as you probably know, and some ICUs are at capacity and overwhelmed. How do we get this surge under control here in Florida?
Well, all of us have a role to play. I mean, practicing personal hygiene, washing your hands, wearing a mask, wherever state and local authorities indicate it's appropriate, or wherever you're not able to socially distance, is what each and every one of us can do to slow the spread. And it's clear that people all across Florida are doing just that. Those encouraging trends that we saw emerge in the last several days really should give great confidence to people going forward, that just like we did in the greater New York City area, just as we did in New Orleans early on, in Detroit, that when we put these principles into practice, we can flatten the curve. And we're going to work very closely with your healthcare community. We're going to make sure that your hospitals have the PPE, the equipment that they need, the personnel, and the support to provide healthcare as Florida and the people of Florida make their way through this time.
You mentioned wearing masks. As you probably know as well, in Florida, certain counties require masks, other counties do not. The governor has refused to order a statewide mask mandate. You mentioned it. We've seen the widely publicized research. Masks are effective. They have been throughout the course of history. Do you feel the governor should require a statewide mask mandate? There are a lot of people who say this would help the surge.
Well, from early in this coronavirus pandemic, our approach at the White House has been to trust governors and to trust state and local health authorities. And we really do believe that as you look at the rise of cases across the Sun Belt early on here in Florida just a few weeks ago, that there were parts of the state that were deeply impacted. There were parts of the state that were not. And so we believe that having the flexibility to be able to have the kind of mitigation efforts that are appropriate to each community actually strengthens people's confidence in willingness to take those tasks on. The reality is it's not a one-size-fits-all, and that's why we really respect the decision Governor DeSantis has made to encourage people to wear masks, to practice social distancing, but ultimately to allow local communities to evaluate what their circumstances are and to guide their local citizens in the best means possible.
Would you like to see a statewide mask mandate?
Well, I think it's always a good idea to wear a mask, but I think for each and every state, it just depends on the circumstances. And the Sunshine State is such a big state with so many people and such an extraordinary diversity of geography and interest. I think that we'll just keep deferring to Governor DeSantis' decision to let local communities and counties in Florida determine the best approaches possible. And again, I really do believe that following the data, following the science, having a locally executed healthcare response has been one of the keys to us dealing with this pandemic from the very beginning. Our job at the federal level is to continue to support states, support governors, and support those local health officials, and that's how we'll get through this together.
And the governor's approach, as you know, was widely praised by President Trump. He went up and he visited President Trump a few times. He used Florida as an example. That was before the surge. Did Florida reopen too quickly? Should Florida close again?
Well, let me say that what's happened across the Sun Belt started happening almost a month and a half after Florida opened up again, after places like Georgia and Arizona, Texas, and California opened up. There are many theories about what happened. It may have been large-scale protests that took place over and around Memorial Day weekend. It may have been Memorial Day weekend gatherings, social settings. But whatever it was, it set into motion, particularly among young people, the outbreak that we've witnessed all across the Sun Belt. And so we really do believe that by focusing resources here across the region, by making sure that our hospitals have the resources and support, that we're surging testings to places like Miami that have been deeply impacted, and providing medicines like remdesivir to hospitals and communities that are seeing a significant number of serious cases is the best pathway forward. But we also think it's important that we continue to open up again in a safe and responsible way, that we also open up our schools again. And we believe that we can do that. We literally are making progress against this pandemic. And people have been going back to work all across Florida, all across America. We're proving we can do it in a safe and responsible way, even while we make sure that our hospitals, our healthcare workers, and our families have all the support they need to receive the health care that we'd want any member of our family to have.
I know you have to go. I know my time is over here. So let me end it with this, if you would. Your chance, Mr. Vice President, to speak to the people of Florida directly. You mentioned some jobs are coming back. Absolutely, but we've heard from a lot of people who say that their jobs haven't returned. The tourist industry, as you know, in Florida has been decimated. A lot of people here tell us they're scared. They're worried. What would you like to say to those folks specifically?
I would say to people all across Florida and all across America, that we're going to get through this. A day like today, when here in Florida we launched the very first phase 3 clinical trial of a vaccine in historic time. It's a tribute to American ingenuity. It's frankly a tribute to the urgency that President Trump put behind demanding that our pharmaceutical industry develop the therapeutics as well as the vaccines. And I hope it gives people great confidence and hope that we'll get through this time. But each of us have a role to play, and I think it's the progress that we're beginning to see here in Florida, the encouraging trends in hospitalizations and even cases across Florida. It's a tribute to the fact that the American people are always willing to step up, do what needs to be done. And I'm very confident as we all continue to play our part, we all continue to play a role, that we'll reach that day someday in the not distant future when we put this coronavirus in the past. But in between now and then, we're going to keep opening up Florida, keep opening up America, open up our schools, and move our nation forward.